GPU is just a beast.
I know, and it's not hard to understand why. Even for those with a $10,000 command center, it is still the most important component, probably the most expensive thing, or at the very least, the hottest. Definitely over 600 watts, we're talking about a space heater, okay? But in my opinion, ray tracing, very high resolution and frame rate, all those beautiful pixels are, of course, important, but the way you see those beautiful pixels on your display is equally as important, if not even more. And I see a lot of excitement and popularity on the internet when it comes to GPUs and FPS and ray tracing, upscaling, DLSS, all this stuff. But nobody talks about the display. I mean, some people do, of course. But it is like an afterthought. Even for those, spending big money on a high-end gaming PC, the monitor is something that they don't even research too much or consider or care about. Sometimes people save money with the peripherals because it doesn't really make a difference. And that's wrong. It's the most important thing. So now, how can you get the best, picture quality? How can you see those beautiful pixels on your screen the best way? Well, HDR. So the thing is, when you get into HDR gaming, we're talking about many options, especially on the PC. We have Windows 11 AutoHDR, if you want to upgrade to Windows 11. We also have now RTX HDR from NVIDIA. But we also have Reshade with the Majorpainthecactus Add-on. We have a SpecialK. We have the HDR analysis tool with the Lilium shaders. We also have different HDR formats. Now we have HDR 10 Plus. So the thing is,
This is too much. This morning I said, this is too much. And now I realize it's too much.
I get it. Okay, it's too much. Like, okay, you've seen the videos. You know how many options we have. You can check out the videos I've done about RTX HDR. Actually, I was surprised when I type in RTX HDR tweaks, my video comes first in the search. That is great for the channel. You can also check out how to force Windows 11 AutoHDR on every single game. It even works for videos on the web, which is great. And we also have many other mods like RenoDX HDR mods, which are very good. For example, we get a game like Kingdom Come Deliverance, which looks very good. Performance is nice, lighting, it's beautiful, but it doesn't even have HDR, which that's just, it's crazy that these developers don't think about it either. So your game can be beautiful, but if it is not ready to be presented on the display with the highest quality, what's the point? It's like you don't see those beautiful pixels presented the best way. So HDR is a must, and unfortunately, still, it's not something that the developers are focusing on. So we have to basically figure it out. If the game doesn't have HDR, we need to know, okay, which is the best option? What should I do? RTX HDR, Windows 11 AutoHDR, Majorpainthecactus, SpecialK, SDR HDR trick, RenoDX HDR. What do I do? Just turn off HDR completely? Some people think that, oh, SDR is better because you're avoiding all this mess, and wrong. Don't do that. It is true, some displays, some lower end displays look better on SDR, but if you get a high-end gaming PC, you don't want to save the money on the display. Okay, that's your first upgrade. Before you get the command center, upgrade the display first. It is the most important thing. It will give you the best upgrade in your gaming experience. So on this video, I'm going to give you the blueprint. Like what I do, basically. I install a new game, what do I do? Do I spend, 1 hour figuring out what's the best HDR? No. I just want to open the game first, get it looking good, see if I like the game, if I'm going to play the game. Then I might spend more time tweaking if I'm actually going to spend hours and hours with the game. But just at the very beginning, I'm going to share with you what I do to just get very quickly something that looks good, okay? And here's the thing. The only part about this that I cannot tell you for sure is what is related to your display. So depending on your display brightness and calibration, the settings are gonna be different, okay? But in general, this blueprint that I'm gonna share with you can be applied to any display. The only thing that you're gonna change is the peak brightness of the sliders in-game or if you're using any of these tricks. So here's what I would recommend everyone, okay? NVIDIA has the solution. RTX HDR is absolutely amazing. And actually, it is so good that I thought initially, well, this is perfect. And I said that here. That's it. Just force RTX HDR on every single game and you're all set. That's all you need. And I was actually wrong. You cannot do that because RTX, you can do it, but it's not gonna look the best. RTX HDR doesn't work well. And this is something that NVIDIA has to fix. NVIDIA can easily fix this problem. It doesn't happen with many games. That's maybe why they're not even aware of that or they don't care to fix it for now. But they have to fix this. For games that are originally Gamma, SDR Gamma, sRGB, RTX HDR is going to crush blacks. So this is my recommendation. The first time you open a game, use RTX HDR. Now some people say, well, RTX HDR is not worth it because it costs performance. And I agree with you. You can fix that very easily by using this mod that I share. Link in the description of the video also to this video where I go through how to install this mod. Is very, very simple. So you can use this mod to lower the quality of RTX HDR so it doesn't cost that much performance. It's almost no performance impact. I mean like 1 or 2 FPS, not a big deal. So the low quality RTX HDR, what it does is to disable the dithering. The dithering is processing to eliminate or reduce color banding. Color banding is when you don't see a smooth transition of colors. So you look at the sky and you see some bands of colors that looks very ugly because you're doing this SDR to HDR trick. You can disable that in many games. You're not gonna see any problems and the performance is a lot better than if you use RTX HDR from the NVIDIA app. So that would be my recommendation. Use this mod, it works for every single game and you can get all the performance. So that would be the way I would open every single game. And it's very simple to apply. You just need to copy some files on the game. So basically you just open, I can tell you now, you just open this app here that is called NV HDR, and then you are gonna go to your game installation folder and you can drag the executable here, just turn yes, okay, and then after that you're going to have to copy these files, either the x86 or x64, either of these two files to the games. You're gonna have to copy those, and this is where you have the settings. Now, which one do you have to copy? It's gonna depend on the game. You try one, if it doesn't work, then you try the other one. You'll figure it out after you do it a couple times. So now here is where you have the settings. So then you're gonna open these settings and you're gonna come down here to where it says the quality. So this quality is by default in 2, which is high. So that quality setting, you're gonna change that to 1, actually to 0. So 0 would be the low quality. So it's 0, 1, or 2. So low, medium, and high. So change it to 0, save that, and you're all set. Or you can just do it here. So when you copy the files, it's already set. And where it says peak brightness, depending on your monitor, if you have an HDR 400 monitor, that's the mode that you are using, you would use that. If you have a 1000 nits, you just type in 1000 nits. So it depends on your monitor. And if you want, higher overall brightness, you can also change that with this mid-tones brightness setting, which also you can find here in this document. You also have saturation and all of that. Now here under Gamma, you can see here clearly in this document that it says Gamma 2.2 by default. And it says here, there is no way to set it to sRGB. So there is no way to set the Gamma to sRGB. So you can change this to improve things a little bit if the game looks too dark, but that's not going to be ideal. So basically, my recommendation is you do this for every single game. Most likely, the game is gonna look perfect. You don't have to worry about that. Now, if the game supports HDR, try that first. Of course, I'm talking about games that don't have native HDR or games that have native HDR that looks absolutely terrible, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for example. Something like that, which is like absolutely horrendous. I mean, anyone can see that. It's just terrible. So then you just don't use that, then you use RTX HDR. But if the game has native HDR, it's better. It's easier. You don't have to do any of this. Okay, and it potentially it can look better. Okay, so do that first. And very simple. If you open the game and it looks too dark, for example, GTA 5 or the GTA trilogy, San Andreas, these new games, there are many examples. I had one game open here that is also a good example. This game is originally SDR sRGB, and it's very simple to see that. I don't know why HDR was turned off. Let me turn it back on again. It's very simple to do that even if you don't use RTX HDR, because if you just open the game on SDR, I don't know why is this not, it's because I have the TV, it's not in game mode. Let me figure this out for a moment. Okay, I just turned on game mode on the TV, the PC restarted, that's why I had to do it every time with this TV. So if you open the game without RTX HDR, without native HDR, no Auto HDR, nothing, you just open the game and you do this on HDR, you just max out the brightness here. You look at it, and if the contrast looks good, if you don't see washed out colors, near black, it looks visible, but it is dark enough. So it's not like everything is washed out. You will see that. If you do this on a game and it was originally Gamma 2.2, it's gonna look washed out very clearly. Now this game, for example, if you do this, it looks perfect. So what that means is that you cannot use RTX HDR. If you open this game with RTX HDR, this is it's called a straight blade, but like I was saying, GTA 5, from what I remember, and GTA the trilogy, and many others have this. If you open them with RTX HDR, it's gonna look too dark. So near black, all the dark details are going to be crushed. And you're not going to be able to see well. The contrast of the image is going to be too much. If that happens, you cannot use RTX HDR. So what can you do? Windows 11 Auto HDR. So now Windows 11 Auto HDR works perfect for Originally SDR sRGB games. So there you go. That would be an easy blueprint. Game has native HDR, try that. It's a wet fart, turn it off, open the game with RTX HDR. Most likely it will look perfect. If it doesn't, you will see that the contrast is just way too much. You're struggling to see the dark details. Then turn off RTX HDR and use Windows 11 AutoHDR here. Just turn this on and open the game. Done. That would be an easy way to get you, up and running with every single game. Now for RTX HDR tweaks, the HDR calibration app doesn't matter at all. But for Windows 11 AutoHDR, it does. The peak brightness will be whatever you set on the HDR calibration app, the Windows 11 HDR calibration app. So you need to go through the Windows 11 HDR calibration app and set, you set the first one to 0, then the second one to the peak brightness of your display, this one too, and then the colors at the end to 0. Okay? And Windows 11 AutoHDR will go up to 1000 nits. Okay? That's it. Okay? So now, if you want to go even deeper to get a better result, definitely search for RenoDX HDR mods for the game you're trying. For example, Kingdom Come Deliverance has a RenoDX HDR mod that looks absolutely amazing. It's just fantastic. Cyberpunk, search for RenoDX HDR. It is better than the native HDR on the game because it removes that ugly color grading that makes everything look green and washed out, near black, and the whites look blown out. It's just a mess, complete mess. RenoDX HDR is the way to go. So if you want to go deeper, search for a specific mod for that game. For example, Starfield got a mod from Lilium, Pumbo, and all these developers that work on Reshade. That's fantastic. So those kind of mods are going to be superior to the native HDR of the games more often than not, because if these developers work on a mod, it's because they know they can do better than the game. It's that simple. So definitely try those. Then you can also try a SpecialK, which is another way to get an Auto HDR effect on the game. Or try with Reshade, try Majorpainthecactus Add-on. So install Reshade with full add-on support, and then during the installation process, add the Lilium HDR shaders, so HDR shaders by Lilium, and add the Advanced Auto HDR shader by Pumbo. And with either of those, you can get the Majorpainthecactus add-on working. So the tone mapping for the add-on working. So you can change it, the peak brightness, depending on your display. You can change the gamma. So with those, you can select sRGB, originally sRGB, or gamma 2.2. So you can always get it looking perfect. Now, some games don't work with that add-on, but most of them do. It depends on the engine. If it's on Unreal Engine, it will work for sure. But if it's a multiplayer, you cannot do that. If it's a multiplayer, it might also be a problem to use the RTX HDR tweaks. So one thing you can do is to use Auto HDR. And if the game doesn't support Auto HDR, you can force it using this app that I share. Actually, when I search here, Windows 11 Auto HDR, everything, my video is coming up on top. So that's great. So I shared this. It's called Leodedge AutoHDR Force. And it's very simple. All you have to do is similar to the RTX HDR tweaks. All you have to do is to open this executable, and then go to the game installation folder, and then you drag the executable here. That's it. You just type in yes, 10 bits, boom, and it works. So that's going to force Windows 11 AutoHDR. Now, how do you know that it's working? Because you will not see the Auto HDR message popping on the screen. How do you know it's working? You come here to the HDR settings, and you lower the SDR content brightness to 0. So when you open the game, if it looks bright, it's working. Because there's no way it will be that bright. Otherwise, it's gonna be dim. You set it to 0. Anything you open on SDR is gonna look like this. This is the SDR content brightness when you have HDR on Windows. Okay, that's it. Okay, so yeah, there are some details. You will definitely have to, get used to, good-looking HDR, so you can detect, okay, there's a problem here. This doesn't look right. But in general, the easiest clue is to look at the darkness. If the darkness looks too dark, you cannot see well, then that's what you go with. So to summarize, very simple. Open every single game. This is my recommendation. Open every single game on HDR using, first, if the game has native HDR, try that. See how that looks. It looks very bad, totally wrong, completely washed out. Okay, turn that off. Try RTX HDR. Does it look perfect? There you go. If it looks too dark, use Windows 11 AutoHDR. If that still doesn't look good, so with Windows 11 AutoHDR, it's not going to crush blacks, at least. Not if the original SDR game looks good enough. But maybe it still doesn't look great because the color grading of the game is just kind of messed up. Like, for example, Black Myth Wukong, even on SDR, looks kind of washed out. So you might encounter some games that the color grading is ugly. Search for a mod like RenoDX HDR mod, or any of these mods made by the developers on Reshade, Lilium, Pumbo, and all this crew. There you go. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Also, learn about your display. It's very, very important for you to check out. I use this video. I will have it in the description of the video. This beginning with Jensen. This video from Gamers Nexus. So, also, you need to figure out your display. Is your display crushing blacks just because of the calibration? So try to fix that with the settings that you have available on your display, or maybe a program like I share for this MSI QD OLED monitor. I share the settings to get the near black visibility perfect. So if your display is crushing blacks, then that's not a good reference for you to judge, because maybe it's crushing blacks, so you open a game with Auto HDR and it looks perfect because it's crushing blacks. Even if the game was originally Gamma 2.2, it looks perfect because maybe the calibration of your monitor is crushing blacks a little bit. So that compensates that washed out look. But then it becomes